Enter the world, but tread with care. Those roots remember every prayer. Carved from ash, from bone, from flame. The sacred beasts don't play or game. Here change comes, swift on silver wing, with dragonflies that bite and sting. Truth flickers soft and sharp as steel, and every wound must learn to heal. Don't come armed with hollow lore. This world won't let you fake the war. For those who think they understand, you'll bleed the fastest by your hand. So read and ache, be torn apart. These stories rise from broken hearts. With grit and teeth they scream and soar. You've never known a world like this before.
Welcome to The Black Butterfly, Book 1 of the Sacred Blood series by Sarah Yuher. 7. Dragon Wings and Fire Lilies. 31st of Ravenok's Night, 8311. The following month went by at an agonizingly slow pace for Frostfang, with no overzealous messengers from other vampires or anyone trying to take Frostfang and Seraphina on. His night brother Apollo did have roses sent as an apology for being unable to attend the winter ball. When he had walked out into the antechamber of his private rooms to see it covered floor to the high ceiling in a rainbow of roses, his eyes had flashed ruby, and he instructed the servants to remove all but one of the vases. The vase was crystal with a dragon among roses painstakingly etched into it. The mouth was gilded in gold with a crystal nightingale perched delicately on the edge, and it held only 3 long-stemmed roses. 2 roses were solid colors, one with sapphire and one with ruby petals. The third had multicolored petals of midnight blue and crimson red. The Lord of Winter Manor placed that vase at the base of Seraphina's sculpture on the central fountain. Frostfang didn't always know what to do with or about Apollo, but the other vampire had somehow wormed his way into his good graces over the centuries. Ever since his meeting with Rose about the RSVPs and the offerings, Frostfang found himself unable to get the scent of fire lilies out of his mind and had planted a field of them underneath the frost blossom tree in the center of his private garden with a stepping stone path to the base of the tree where Frostfang could sit if he wished. The lilies replaced the sand garden, and he left the boulders that had been there for the sand garden. He was now sitting on one of those boulders, peacefully enjoying the scent of the lilies. An intriguing flower that blooms year-round. Even at the end of winter, their golden red petals look beautiful and full of life in the snow. The pollen buds in the center of each flower glowed faintly like the flame of a candle. Under the branches of the frost blossom tree, with petals beginning to fall like snowfall around the garden, the lily patch looked like it was meant to be there. It is a beautiful sight. Seraphina was watching the lilies from her usual spot by her cave. That it is. Frostfang couldn't get enough of the lily's scent, but it seemed to pale at the memory of the perfume Rose had worn. The odd thing, though, was when he asked her about it, she seemed confused, saying she had not purchased any new perfumes. He had also not smelled it on her since. He glanced at Seraphina as she got up and stretched like a giant winged cat. He watched as she went over to where footholds had been carved into the mountainside for her. When the tree branches had begun to spread closer to her cave, he added the footholds so she could come and go from the cave without harming the tree. "I need to stretch my wings and sunrise is still hours off," she commanded him. Frostfang didn't need to be told twice as he jumped from boulder to boulder until he reached the dragon. Mounted at the base of her neck, he held on as she climbed up the wall. Once above the tree, she spread her wings and pushed off from the mountain, catching onto a wind current. As the dragon climbed higher and higher, she flew in circles around the manor, giving them a perfect view of the place they called home. From above, they could see the lower garden, connected to the balcony of his private one by a staircase. Servants and slaves were moving around in the much larger one, readying it for the winter ball in 2 nights. An oak tree was planted in the garden center, and cherry blossom trees were spaced evenly around the garden's edge. Paths wound through beds of flowers in intricate designs, and to one side of the garden was a koi and goldfish pond. Out of sight, glass doors led to an actual ballroom. When in full bloom, the garden was a sight, and many of the vampire lords and ladies would request that Frostfang hold more balls to show it off. Many tried to recreate the garden in their manors and estates, but the attempts paled in comparison. Some even asked if he would allow Rose to go and help direct them in their attempts, thinking she was the mastermind behind the garden. "It is amusing that none of them think you could create something so beautiful," Seraphina remarked at his passing thought. "Apollo knows, but then he comes and watches me as I tend the gardens." Some even asked if it had been my night brother who had made the gardens. Does he even have that kind of talent? Those red and blue roses are his creation. As much as he worships beauty, you would think he cannot create it. Ever since he had been turned, the ruby rage of his father's people had been close to the surface. For the better part of 100 years, it had been all he was when he first became Frostfang. Before he had been turned, he had never once given into that rage. Sure, there were times when he was angry for one reason or another, but he had never been genuinely enraged until the night Ithra came into his life. The night the man he had been was slain by betrayal. The night Frostfang was born. Now, the ruby rage was a constant companion. With even the slightest annoyance, his eyes would flash from gentle sapphire to enraged ruby, and someone would scream in pain. He relished when other vampires would challenge him and enjoyed watching their cocky smirks turn to pure terror as he showed no mercy with the onslaught of his blade. The screams of the dying were music to his ears as Seraphina drenched them in frozen flame as they ran. The creation of the gardens had brought him a measure of peace. Working his sword forms under the branches of the frost blossom tree only further to strengthen that bubble of peace. Frostfang cherished that sense of peace, even if it was fragile and shattered often. The manor was built into a cradle of mountains, the valley of which was tiered. From their height, they could see the back courtyard that led to the stables with their field for horses to exercise. A paved road led from that courtyard to another larger one at the front of the manor. This one held the only entrance into the valley. The wall built at the pass leading into Frostfang's home was always well guarded, and watchtowers were scattered throughout the mountains around the cradle. Apollo always accused him of hiding himself away in the eternal mountains. "Is he wrong?" Seraphina asked. "Is it hiding when people know where you are?" Frostfang countered. The only other way in or out was on the wings of a dragon, and since Seraphina was the only one in Eternia, no one but Frostfang had an easy time getting there. Prince Zion had tried with his wyverns once, but hadn't tried again. "I'm still annoyed that Godric and his wyvern got away, though," Seraphina remarked in annoyance. A paved road on the other side of the entrance courtyard led down to the barracks where the guards lived and trained. He saw some of them training in the yard as they flew over. Upon noticing the pair flying overhead, the men stopped and bowed to them before resuming their training drills. They climbed out of the cradle, and as they passed the mountain tops to the east, the eternal forest came into view. The great oak tree of Queen's Cradle stood tall and proud in the forest's center. All vampires were uneasy in the presence of the forest, and any that entered the forest were never seen again. Making his home so close to the forest forced many who came to visit him have to pass near the border, especially since the main path into the mountains was only a few miles from the first trees. That forest is sacred. Seraphina always spoke of it with a sense of awe. Something sleeps within, waiting. And what could be sleeping in that forest? Maybe Elda Moonborn herself sleeps within. The Moonborn clan is dead. King Absalom made sure of that with a philosopher's stone. In one of those books you have, it said that Elda's blood watered the great oak, and her tears are the waters of Queen's Cradle itself, Seraphina insisted. And how much of High Queen Elda Moonborn's legend is truth, and how much is simple myth? They say she appeared at the dawn of the last age to fight back the demon hordes and help found the Order of the Dragon Riders with Ronan Stormbringer himself. Then returned almost 9,000 years later to fight them again and bring the children of the Moon Mother to Lunaria. If those stories are to be believed, that would make her almost 10,000 years old. Every scrap of knowledge of Pyrcans says they only have a 1,000-year lifespan. Frostfang countered. But there is nothing in the eternal forest waiting to awaken. The Six have turned their backs on us. The gods have turned their backs on us. The forest shuns my kind, the same as the Sun Father. The eternal forest is proof that we are all forsaken and damned with no hope for salvation or redemption, if you ask me. Frostfang could feel her wanting to argue more, but he firmly put a stop to the conversation. Distant memories of his grandfather telling him of the fairies that dwelled within did not take kindly to those who had broken sacred oaths or who walked in darkness. Only oathbreakers who walked the dishonored path were permitted entrance to that ancient forest. Frostfang reached back and touched the white ribbon wrapped around his braid. The saw that once bound him to the oaths of the divine blades. Broken oaths he no longer lived his life by. His sword was shamed, and he dared to wear the saw still. Who would I even present my saw to? Do I even care? He laughed mirthlessly. A river skirting the border of the forest was fed by the underground springs in the mountains, the same springs that provided water to Winter Manor. Looking out over the forest towards the great oak, he saw a streak of silver. It was not the first time he had seen this. He knew it was some silver bird, and based on the size and distance, he was reasonably sure that the bird was massive. He watched as the bird flew around the oak branches for a time before it dove back into the forest, presumably going after some prey. Seraphina took them back towards the mountains, flying through their tops deftly and gracefully. The dragon passed over valleys and other cradles, though none were as large as the one Frostfang had built Winter Manor in. 3 of the largest tucked away in hard-to-notice spaces held forts that housed the bulk of the army he had created. Underground paths connected them and Winter Manor. Only Frostfang and his knew the size of his army, and the forts were hidden well enough that no one passing through the mountains would see them. Just outside the mountains, he had built Fort Sapphire and Fort Ruby, which housed a large force of his soldiers. They weren't connected to the others, but did rest at both entrances to the mountain passes that led to Winter Manor. While they were decoys, Frostfang had made sure they were defensible, and both had yet to fall. They continued on their moonlit flight for a time, enjoying the time away from everything, with the wind embracing them. Frostfang opened himself up to Seraphina, and they let their minds blend, losing track of where one ended and the other began. He felt the wind beneath her wings, powerful muscles pumping as they rode the current, letting it carry them where it would. She could feel the wind against his face, flowing through his hair and making the long cloth-covered braid at the base of his skull stream out behind him. They lost themselves in each other for a time, Seraphina finding her peace from the chaos of their minds and natures. Too soon, though, they had to return to the manor. Dawn was coming, and the Sun Father was not kind to any vampire foolish enough to be caught by his light. Ishtar has the right of it. Burn us to ash so nothing remains, Frostfang mused to himself bleakly. As they passed over the front courtyard, they saw a couple of carriages belonging to vampires dropping off their charges at the entrance doors to the manor. Seraphina landed on the platform above Frostfang's private garden. She climbed down into the garden, Frostfang sliding from her back to land easily on the ground. He saw a vampire standing near the patch of fire lilies. She was dressed in a fine silk dress with a matching fur-lined cloak. Her honey-blonde hair was curled and pinned up in a mound atop her head like a crown. A golden tiara embedded with diamonds sat among the silky curls. She wore gem-encrusted jewelry that bordered on overly gaudy. Her face was contorted with disgust as she looked down at the lilies with her red-ringed pale blue eyes. Seraphina entered her cave as Frostfang went to the vampire, intruding on their space. The Dragon Lord went to one knee and bowed his head. His right hand fisted over his heart. With his left hand, he removed his sheathed blade from his cloth belt, placing it on the ground in front of him, then placed his left fist on the scabbard. "Night Mother, my blade and blood are yours." He spoke with his head bowed. He stayed in this position as he waited for the vampire to acknowledge him, all too aware of the press of the coming dawn. "If she lets you burn, I will destroy Winter Manor with her inside." Seraphina never bothered to hide her distaste for his Night Mother, Princess Ithra. The vampire regarded him for a time as he stayed motionless before her. He wrapped himself in the calm void his grandfather had taught him many centuries ago. "First, you plant this infernal tree. Then you only sire 2 fledglings. Then you refuse all offerings made to you for a handmaiden, killing most of them." Prince Zion is still angry at the loss of not only his night son, Draken, but the loss of the 5 dragon eggs in his possession. And now you have added these unlucky flowers to your garden. The only thing you ever seem to do right is amuse my fop of a night son, Apollo. She listed all of his recent sins. Do you try to make me angry, night son? No, night mother, he responded evenly. Then what do you plan to do to soothe my anger? From his reports and my night daughter's observations, General Maverick Briardal Bloodoath has presented a most exceptional offering this year. This, added to his long years of loyalty and service, makes him worthy of being offered the gift of the blood. If he declines, his grandson, Kieran, is also worthy of the offer. Not once did Frostfang move from his bow as he spoke. The vampire regarded her night son with cold eyes as she weighed his words. Princess Ethra reached out with a pale hand and lifted his chin to look at her. All well and good, but none of that answers why you have yet to pick a handmaiden and finally begin the Frostfang Damper bloodline. No offering has matched your glory, Night Mother. Her gaze into his eyes searched for any hint of disloyalty, and then she spoke in a commanding voice that called to his blood to obey. In 2 nights, you will pick an offering to make your handmaiden, in the least. It would make me even more pleased if you picked one to make your maid as well, but it seems I must take baby steps with you. As you command, Night Mother. I know Lady Elisa has sent an offering as well. Picking her offering may soothe Prince Zion's anger towards you. However, you could accept all the offerings if you truly wanted to. I have looked through Rose's reports, and all of them are exceptional, she added thoughtfully. It is as if everyone has put their best offerings forward, he agreed. Suddenly, her eyes filled with lust as she let them wander over him. Now come, let me taste of you, my Frostfang, she said as she slid her hand along his neck and chest. Seraphina sent a burst of disgust through their bond before she slammed and locked the door between them. The disgust and sudden loneliness of her departure slid along the outside of the void like poison ivy. Frostfang picked Princess Ethra up and balanced her in one arm. Then he picked his blade up from the ground with the other. He would obey his Night Mother. He would kill who she said to kill. He would fuck who she said to fuck. He would obey his Night Mother. At least dawn is close, and it will be quick, he thought grimly to himself.
O Father, have we failed you? O Mother, have you turned your back on us? What price must we pay for you to send your child unto us? For the chained and the scarred, for the broken and the damned, let us never forget the redemption price. O Father, may you break our chains. O Mother, may you heal our scars. What price must we pay for you to send your child unto us? For the chained and the scarred, for the broken and the damned, let us never forget the redemption price. O Father, can we be redeemed? O Mother, what is life and death? What price must we pay for you to send your child unto us? For the chained and the scarred, for the broken and the damned, let us never forget the redemption price.